Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch Harlan, and welcome to the Truth Talks podcast. Today, I'm joined by an amazing guest, but before I introduce them to you, I want to ask that you please like and subscribe below. That way, we can continue to bring you these incredible stories. And if you're already liked and subscribed to our channel, we thank you for all of your support. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch Harlan, and welcome to the Truth Talks podcast. Today's episode is with Senna Leith. Senna, how are you?
I'm amazing. I'm happy to be here.
Fantastic. I tell you what, this is a podcast that I was absolutely, completely looking forward to because, as you know, I did your father on this podcast.
Yeah.
He speaks very highly of you, and he says to me, hey, listen, I got a great story. He says, it's kind of self-serving. It was my son. And I'm like, all right, tell me about your son, right? And he's like, well, he's a world-class professional snowboarder. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I want to get this guy on the show. So my apologies, I'm not a snowboarder. I didn't know who you were until I started researching you. And then I'm like, holy wow, right? Like, he downplayed it a little bit. You are super good at this thing. Tell me about your snowboarding career.
Well, it's kind of crazy. It was always like, snowboarding was such a passion of mine as a kid. I started skateboarding, and then when I was young, I was like, oh, snowboarding is like the thing to do. And I was a skier. I mean, my dad used to be a big skier, and so we all got into winter sports when we were young. And I was like, I always want to snowboard, but I was never really allowed to snowboard until I like turned 7, I think. And finally got on a snowboard. I haven't been on skis since, and it was just kind of like this natural thing that I ended up being pretty good at. And then I had some coaches when I was young that kind of pushed me into the competitions and started doing low-level competitions. And then all of a sudden, it was just kind of this like linear progression over the years, and all of a sudden, like I am where I'm at now, and it's kind of crazy how the whole thing happened.
Let's define pretty good. So usually what I do with the guests is I'll run down all their accomplishments. Well, I'm only got like 30, 40 minutes here. So if I did that, you've pretty much won everything in snowboarding, but we're talking at the world-class level. You're now looking for the Olympics. That's the end goal. Is that correct?
That's the big one for this year. Yeah, we're going into an Olympic year, and it's a year where I have a pretty solid chance to make the Olympic team, and that's like a lifelong goal. So it's kind of one of those years where you really got to capitalize on it.
So just for a little kind of background, how do you go from the competition you were to the World Cup to the Olympics? Do you have to go through the World Cup to get the Olympics?
Oh yeah, totally.
Okay.
So there's different tiers in snowboarding, like different tiers of the competition levels, and you kind of have to get to a winning level at each tier to move to the next one. So you start at kind of like these local competitions, and then when you start winning those, then you can move to like the big one in my sport is the North American Cup Tour. And so anybody can kind of enter it, but you have to get a certain level of points or win the entire tour to then get a start at a World Cup. And when you get to a World Cup, it's not like, oh, we've made it to a World Cup, you can keep there. You have to get a certain amount of points or result to then like kind of solidify a spot on the World Cup within your national team. So you have to like keep the progression going in your results. And how I booked my ticket to the World Cup was I won the North American Cup overall tour in 2017. And so that was like the big thing in my career that helped me bridge that gap to the World Cup. And then I kind of bounced between the World Cup and the North American Cup as I was able to kind of get my bearings on the World Cup performance-wise, because you go there and it's this whole new realm and you're not going to be good when you start. And so you kind of need to bounce back and forth so you can keep your points up. So you go back to the North American Cup Tour, win a couple races so you still have some points, and then go to the World Cup, try to progress a little bit. And then you get to a point where you're like, okay, I'm where I'm at on the World Cup. This is where all my focus needs to be right now. And it's kind of where I'm at now.
So obviously, I when I'm doing research, I watch a lot of videos. You're hauling ass down these hills. Like sometimes when you're watching on TV, like you don't realize how fast you guys are going. Like that's breakneck speed. So what kind of speed do you get up to when you're in the race?
In a Snowboard-Cross World Cup, usually 40, 50 is kind of like where we'll max out if it's a pretty fast course, because we have a lot of turns and jumps and there's a lot of people around you. There's a lot of stuff going on, so they don't really like us to go too fast, or else it's just mayhem can ensue. And
that's the one where we see the guy fly off the edge.
Yeah, you don't want that.
Yeah, you know what? That's a bad day, right?
So they got to monitor it a little bit.
And you don't get a second chance after a small blurb. It looks like if you just board your just a little bit, the other guys are gone.
It doesn't even matter if you crash. Like if you have a tiny mistake in your run, you have a tiny mistake in a turn or a little bobble off a jump, like people are so good nowadays, and it's really the tiny details that win races. And if you mess up a tiny detail, it's hard to recover. So precision is the name of the game.
And I know a lot of guys that are going to be listening to your podcast who love you and stuff. They're going to probably know quite a bit about snowboarding. There's a lot of people that, they go at the mountains, they see a guy on a snowboard, and they're like, oh, man, that guy's pretty good doing some jumps. We're talking doing this really freaking fast with zero error, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the part that really kind of blew me away when I was watching it after I heard about you. And I did watch your World Cup race, which was pretty. It's a little bit of a contact sport. It looks like
Sometimes you don't want it to be, but the elbow's got to come out every once in a while, and some people can get a little reckless. So you kind of got to be ready for it.
Well, I mean, again, to be the best, don't you have to be a little reckless?
Yeah, well, I don't know if you got to be reckless. I think you got to be prepared for recklessness. Because if you're reckless, then you might not. That precision might not happen. But you got to be prepared for other people being reckless and
what's your game plan typically? Is it I'm trying to outspeed these guys, or I'm trying not to make a single mistake?
Well, if you're outspeeding them, it means you're making no mistakes,
right? But even if is the game plan? Listen, I'll start on the top of this thing. As soon as that gate opens, I'm just going.
As soon as the gate opens, my thing is like all out aggression and just focusing on every single movement. And then when you get into a position where you're around like these other people and you're really tight, it kind of just boils down to natural instincts. And that's kind of what, you learn to rely on as an athlete is because if you're overthinking all those things, it's not going to be good. Those movements and those reactions need to be subconscious. And that's kind of the difference between what makes really great athletes great and kind of just the average athlete is being able to rely on those natural instincts and make the decisions you need to make without even thinking about them.
Well, there's a reason I'm asking these questions because here's the deal. There's a lot of kids that when you get to the level you're at, they're looking up to you. And I noticed here, some of your professional athletes, Michael Jordan. I mean, it's all these guys that are at the top of their world,
Just
right?
Huge, yeah.
And now these kids are kind of looking at you like, hey man, this is the guy, right? And we talked about this a little off camera, but that's actually the least of the pressure for you.
Yeah, and that might just be like my personality type, as you start to move your way up and kind of this whole society that is snowboarding and people start to look up to you and people start to recognize you. I don't feel any pressure from that. I think it's kind of cool because me personally, how I look at that is I have this opportunity to kind of make this impact, and that's something that makes me feel good. If I have the chance to have this great interaction with this young athlete that knows me and has wanted to meet me, and all of a sudden I met him in a lift line and they're like, yo, are you Senna? I'm like, yeah, what's up? Like, how's it going? Like, I'll totally take time out of my day to go take a run with them because I think that's more important than anything else is kind of creating that positive impact, and I think it's just great for the whole sport itself.
Well, that is a prime example of the nut doesn't fall far from the tree. So as I'm talking to your dad about his podcast, and we're going to plug him because we love it, but your dad's the owner of Tokyo Joe's. And when I was doing his podcast, the one thing he loved most was his employees, their family.
100%.
Always did the right thing, right? Struggled and sacrificed to get this thing up, but his family atmosphere, and I knew you would probably be no different, and you're not. I see you at the end of the race, standing on a podium in the Olympics with a gold medal, and I bet you'd stay there all night and sign every jersey that every kid had.
That's the goal, and I think you kind of owe it to people if you get to that certain level because those are the people that kind of made you who you are, and that's your community. So it's kind of about taking care of others as you take care of yourself.
Well, we're going to talk about community because when people look you up, right, there's a bunch of different things on the internet, and one of them says you're from Vail, one of them says you're from Denver, one of them says you're from whatever, and if they look at your stuff, they see in Hawaii, they see all these cool things that you do because you're a big adventure guy, too. You love the outdoors.
Big adventure guy. Yeah, I hate when I'm not adventuring. I feel like I'm not capitalizing on life.
Well, as a matter of fact, when we did your kind of pre-interview, you were hiking at the time when we
did
it.
Yeah, you called me, and I was like, oh, my gosh, I forgot he was going to call me. I was in the middle of a hike. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, this guy's an adventure guy.
Which is so unlike me. I'm usually like so on my schedule and knowing exactly what's going to happen, but it was there was a really good weather that morning, so we were like, oh, let's just go get it. I'm like, yeah, let's go. Like, I figure everything else out, and all of a sudden I'm like, phone call. I remember the phone call because I didn't have your number saved, and so I'm calling, I was like, I don't know who's calling me, but it doesn't matter right now. I'm hiking. And then I was like, oh gosh, it called you right back.
You did. And it was really funny that we went there. And, of course, I didn't see anywhere in here who your favorite podcaster was. I'm just going to assume it's me.
Yeah,
but
100%.
Yeah, because I'm, Michael Phelps, Michael Jordan, it would only make sense to go down that line. But here's where I want to go with this. Sometimes people would look at your life and it's like, oh, man, this is just a privileged kid. And I want to bring this back around because I think that the Leith name means so much more than what anybody would ever know or ever be able to look you up. I fell in love with your dad after doing this podcast. I'm like, man, what a great human being. I know as a father, it takes a lot when your kids have a great potential. It's not like you just like, hey, go jump on that snowboard and show your potential. It's money, it's sacrifice, it's cost. Talk to me a little bit about how your family helped get you to be the Senna Leith that you are now.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty easy to, like, for example, if somebody went to my Instagram page and we're like, oh, wow, this guy lives the life, you know, and I do. Like, I'm so thankful. I'm so fortunate to be in the position I am, and I've had so many incredible opportunities, never take it for granted. But yeah, I think people can look at my family and be like, oh, wow, you know, they're super privileged, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, and yeah, like we're so fortunate where we're at now in life, but it wasn't always like that. I mean, I grew up, like the beginning of my life was very normal, you know. My family, it's not like we started out with a huge business. We started out with a small business, and my family was just all about hard work and grit and putting in what you needed to do, and that was something that was huge for me to really watch as I was a kid growing up throughout my whole development. I think for all my siblings, you know, like to be able to watch that is huge. To be able to, I think anybody that grows up that has a family business, to be able to see parents work that hard is massive. But yeah, I mean, it was just kind of a slow progression as my family kind of gained success and just worked hard. And then now we have all these incredible opportunities that were brought to us because of it.
And it is a blessing, man. And your story, like, you know, your dad sold a car to get this business going. And I can so relate to that because my daughter's in cheer, and she's on the world level team as well. And
that's awesome.
Oh, it's just awesome. And you're so proud of your kid. And I know your dad is so proud of you. And it's heartwarming for me because I totally see this. And again, we've got you on camera. So I think that we should probably tell everybody when they start the Leith family reality show that Truth Talks gets some sort of percentage of that nonsense is what I think. It needs to be, you know, you just need to say yes and agree to that. But I see that that would be the story that I would love to watch as a reality show, right? But talk about that. You remember as a kid, you know, right? You're the same, just this kid dad is running you back and forth, mom's running you back, everybody's running you all over the place to be Senna Leith. We talked about now you're an adult and you're like, whoa, now I got some real responsibilities. I see what the sacrifice is. Talk a little bit about the sacrifice of the family that you remember.
Oh, I mean, well, it's funny at the time, you know, you always know your family's working hard and doing what they can do for you, but you never really realize that, I think, until you get older, you know, and you know, now as I'm like in what I would call adulthood a little bit, you know, I'm still playing a lot, but I don't know if that counts.
You're adulting right now and you're doing it well.
I'm trying to, you know, and I see what life costs. Like, life is really expensive, and it's not like, you know, my family was successful. My family was able to help all of the kids, you know, chase their dreams and passions and stuff like that. But it's not like there was just this crazy surplus of money to do whatever, you know. And looking back now, I see like, oh, my family was like, I wouldn't say they're pinching pennies to you know, get us into these passions of ours, but they did every single thing that they could, and that was massive, you know, looking back and seeing even the time that they spent, you know, parents driving you in cars to go to practice and training and stuff like that. And like, that's just a huge sacrifice, you know, not just financially, you know, of course there's financial sacrifices, but I think it's just like the time and emotional sacrifices that your parents and your family makes that help you chase these dreams. And as I've gotten older, I'm like, wow, they did so much for me. It's crazy. And I was always thankful for it in the time, but you know, as time goes on, you really realize like the magnitude of what my family did, and it's huge.
You're just a good man, and I knew bringing this show on that we were going to end up getting this story. And it's one of these are the kind of the heartwarming stories I love to bring on Truth Talks, because I think there's just so much to learn. The sacrifice of the parents of, you know, they're hopefully one day they get to see you up there with that gold medal on, right? And it's
I talk about it. I'm like, if I make an Olympic team, you know, and I think just like making the Olympics itself is such a huge thing, especially as an American. But I always think about, I'm like one of like my motivating factors of like, gosh, being able to call my parents and tell them that like I made the Olympics, like I could cry right now thinking about that, because I know like how massive that is and how much they did to get to, you know, to get me where I am. And like, that's totally exactly what you're saying. I'm like, I would just, it's crazy to think about that.
Dude, and especially when, you know, I think the old saying is, and I think it's something that we've lost a little bit in this country, but you should drive to have your children exceed whatever it is that you've ever done. Now, you got a big mountain to climb there. They've been pretty damn successful, but it's
funny though. Yeah, I think some parents that have, or some kids that have successful parents, I think it's probably different if like your dad's like LeBron James or something like that, you know, like especially if you're going into the same realm of like athletics. But I've never really felt that pressure, you know, that like, oh, I'm getting compared to my dad. You know, he's had so much success. I totally view myself kind of in this own realm of doing my own thing. I'm my own person. That's nothing that's ever really kind of crossed my mind as being compared to that, which I guess I'm kind of thankful for, because I've seen other people where they're just scared of being overshadowed or not living up to their potential that they think they have to live up to compared to their family members or anything like that. I'm thankful that I haven't had to deal with that.
Well, I think what happened is he dealt with that for you.
Yeah.
He made you your own man and didn't make it easy for you and made you do all the hard work, which is now where we're going to segment into this transition here. What does it take to be a professional snowboarder? What's the practice look like? How many hours? What did it take to get to where you're at right now?
It's a lot, dude. I mean, like, it's crazy because you can think, I think certain people that are listening to this can be like, oh, I got to do this many workouts a week and get on snow for this many hours a day and work on this many drills for this. I'm like, yeah, you got to do that. No, but you got to do that for 13 years, 15 years. Like you need to keep this persistence up for so long. And that's what it takes to really get to that professional level is just chipping away at it and, having trust in the process. That's the biggest thing for me is I know, like, from when I started with that individual private team back when I was 14, 15, like, I knew from right then, I was like, I just got to trust in this process that this guy is showing me right now and just work hard, keep doing this. Like, I was able to see the path. I'm like, if I just keep on this path and work as hard, like, I know I'm going to get what I want. And that's just what I did.
Who was your sponsor? Who was the guy that you looked up to when you were first in getting into this?
As an athlete?
Yeah, as an athlete.
There's a lot of them. For my sport individually, there's this guy, Pierre Valtier, who he's from France. He won the 2014 and the 2018 Olympics. But he's just this incredibly dominant snowboard-cross athlete who's so focused and so driven and so much precision in everything that he does. He's definitely one of those athletes when I was kind of really getting into the sport that was inspiring for me. Also, this guy, Alex Chumpy from Australia, he unfortunately passed away just over a year ago in a freediving accident. Yeah, it was horrible. But he was a two-time world champion, just an incredible, just fast as hell guy. Like, he was so fast and so aggressive. And when I was really getting into the sport, those were like his most dominant years. And I hadn't even heard his name until I was really, isolating my focus into Snowboard-Cross with this private team. And they're like, oh, Chumpy won. I'm like, I didn't even know who Chumpy was. And I'm like, and then I started Googling, and that, like, for those 2 years, he was winning everything. I was like, wow, this guy's incredible. And so that was another one of those people that I really looked up to that was just so driven and so detail-oriented in how they performed their sport.
Well, there's some articles about you talking about your organization. Are you an organized freak?
Yeah. I mean, like, for me to be able to really focus on my life and what I need to do, I need to be crazy organized. Like, I need to have, like, a clear mind. If there's, like even just making notes, like, I think, like, making notes is, like, a huge part of my life. Because for example, if I'm going to bed and there's something that's on my mind, I'm like, oh, yeah, just remember that for tomorrow. I won't sleep good because in the back of my mind, it's telling me to remember that because I didn't write it down, So if I'm making notes and organizing everything that I need to do or something to remember, it kind of helps clear my mind. I'm able to kind of focus on the present and what I need to do at that moment. And that's huge for me.
Well, again, I think what they say, the heart of a champion is 95% of his success, but the other 5 is planning to be there, right? So
big planner over here.
Which is awesome, right? I think, again, that's a part of a huge success. It's also probably a part of the success after snowboarding. Now, there's a life after this.
100%.
And you're in the midst, though, right now. You're going after a big goal. You're going after a big dream. And obviously, that's going to be your focus for the next several years.
Yeah.
What do you see yourself doing afterwards?
Well, it's interesting is because part of how I look at the rest of my life is I'm like, okay, the success that I have in this part of my life helps me for the rest of my life. For example, if I become an Olympian, the amount of opportunities that are presented to you in life, if you can just list yourself as an Olympian, especially as an American, because it's the hardest Olympic team to make by a long shot, that's huge, And I have all these other passions. I love photography. Photography is like a big thing. I travel with my camera gear everywhere I go, and it's a big part of how I kind of form my partnerships in terms of media I can create for them and stuff like that. So definitely video, photo is a huge passion of mine. I could see myself getting into that. A lot of people are always like, "Oh, you're gonna get into the family business," and
Right.
I don't ever see myself getting involved with Tokyo Joe's. Our coffee shops in the mountains, I've worked at for years now as a side job, and I could definitely see myself getting involved with that more so as I get older, because that's a big passion of mine and something I'm definitely more connected to at this
Plug
stage of
the
my
name,
life.
man. Plug the name.
Yeti's Grind.
Yeti's Grind, baby.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It is my favorite place in the world. I love it. It is just, it's something that my family kind of stumbled into, not by accident, but something that we definitely, like, when we first got into the coffee business, we're like, oh, we're not going to go full steam into this. And then a couple years later, it's like, oh, yo, this is kind of like almost our main focus right now. Like, this is our big passion, and it's this amazing environment where it's social and you have great employees that work for you. You're in this beautiful place, and the coffee business is it's beautifully simple, because you're making a semi-simple product, even though we have lots of items on our menu, but it's the process of it is simple, and the interaction is simple, and I think it's almost easier to focus on it being really, really great, and that's kind of what we do, and it's amazingly become that way. By like the best.
Where are the locations at?
5 years now. Our main one is in the heart of Vale Village in the Solaris Plaza. It's like I can sit out on that patio all day and just be like totally happy. It's beautiful. It's the best energy ever. Happy people lines usually out the door for about 6 hours. Like, it's crazy. And then we have one down in Eagle, Colorado as well, which is actually the original when my family got into the business. And then we have our third one, which is going to be opening up in Edwards here at the start of September. So,
It's really funny because, again, one of the things I love about having a guest on is just having this conversation, right? And I'm sitting there and I think back to myself and I'm like, gosh, here's this guy who's having this massive success. But again, I understand the sacrifice that was made to get you to where you're at. But dude, one of the things I'm really good at, and I just said, dude, I'm 50 some years old.
Hey, you can say dude all the time.
It works.
When I was driving here, I was like, oh, I gotta be careful with my lingo. I don't know if I could, like, sometimes I'll be talking crazy. I'm like, oh, let's tone it down.
Well, if we look back at your dad's podcast, I think, again, the nut doesn't fall far from the tree on this thing, man, which is what's really fun. But it's just such a feel-good story to me, and I see that, we like to really highlight your accomplishments and what you've done, but in True Talks, I like to highlight the man, and you're just so inspiring with all the stuff I've read and how your dad talks about you, and then obviously getting to meet you, I'm like, this guy's the real deal. He's the same guy that I knew he would be before I even knew who he was, right? So it is an interesting concept because I already know you're going to be a good businessman at something. You're detail-oriented, you're focused, and you're going to get to the end result. That's why I'm always curious at that last question.
My family always jokes. I think this kind of goes for all my siblings, especially me and my brothers. Like, they don't really worry about us too much because they know that we have like the foundation to kind of go do whatever we want to do mentally. Like, they know that we have the drive and we have the work ethic, and I think that's like the base of everything. If you have those, you're pretty much set for kind of anything you want to go after.
Yeah. Well, and again, they put that's the framework, right? I mean, that's the absolute framework. So one of the other things that I want to kind of go down just a little bit, I want to talk a little bit about your family, your siblings. Tell me about all them.
Oh, we can start with the siblings. So my older brother is awesome, Cooper. He lives out in LA. He's in the music industry. He has his own recording studio out there and works with a bunch of developing artists. And yeah, he's just incredibly talented.
Same drive?
Oh yeah, 100%. He has a very different personality than me, but definitely the same drive. Like, he wants stuff bad, but like he's definitely more like, he's quieter. He's not like, I'm crazy social. I'll talk to somebody all day long. I don't really know that's his vibe. But in terms of going after what he wants in life, it's the same thing. He moved out to LA because he knew that LA, for what he wanted to do in the music industry, that's the place to be. So he went out there and went headfirst into it, and probably works more hours in the week than anybody else I know. I mean, every time I call him, he's working, doing something, and he has a vast variety of skills that he's able to really put in place, because of course, like, the recording studio and the aspects of that is massive, but he also is super passionate about photography and videography and stuff like that. So a lot of his artists that he works with, he also films their music videos, and they're like top quality productions. Like, they're incredible. I'm looking at those like, dude, that's insane. Like, that looks like something that, like, any big name artist could be in that music video. Like, it's unbelievable. And so he's definitely chasing his dreams, and he's chipping away at that stone and just trusting in that process as well out there, which is really awesome to see. And then I have my two younger sisters. So my oldest younger sister, Mika, she just graduated high school, actually. And for some background, Cooper, he's 3 years older than me, so he's 27.
Yeah.
And
Getting
Mika,
old.
yeah, so old. And so Mika is 18. Actually, she's about to turn 19 in a couple weeks. So she just graduated high school. She's taking a gap year, and she's an artist, and she's just insanely talented. Like I look at some of her drawings, I'm like, yo, we need to get this on some big blogs or something. You're about to blow up. And so she's about to go to college in New York at Pratt University. So that's going to be a huge thing for her in her art career. Before then, she's actually she's doing some art history courses in Europe, which is insane. I'm like, hope I can cross paths with you over there. She's never been to Europe, and I practically live in Europe more than America nowadays. So
Right.
I'm like, I hope I can cross paths with you over there. So that's what she's doing. She's going after the artist thing and art history, and I'm so proud of her for that. And she's the same way. She's always just passionate about what she's doing, and she's kind of like my brother. She's a little bit quieter. She's kind of in her own space. Just kind of focuses on herself, but has the same drive and knows what she wants in life, and is definitely a go-getter.
Well, what happened to you?
What
Were
do
you
you
so extroverted, man?
Dude, I don't know. And I laugh because my dad likes to say that he's an introvert, but my dad can talk. Like
Yeah.
my dad, I think, although they say like whatever you're, it's how how you recover or whatever, like, oh, you got to be by yourself to get back to normal. And so I get that a little bit from my dad. So my dad definitely has the introvert side to him, but he has the extrovert as well. But my youngest sister, Kaya, she is exactly the same as me. So it balances out. Two of the kids are very loud and outgoing, love to talk to everybody. I'll go into town in town in Vail with my youngest sister, Kaya, sometimes, who's 10. And I swear she knows more people than me. And I'm like, how do you know these people? It's crazy. And so her and I are very similar, and then Mika and Cooper are very similar. So the dynamic there is pretty interesting.
That's another reason I love this story. I mean, I'm not kidding. There's a Leith family story.
It's one big family.
This is new Kardashians,
It's
man.
cool that the cool thing about my family is it's so kind of diversified. Everybody does their own thing, and everybody's supportive of each other. Parents in the restaurant business. Mom's an artist, and one of my younger sister's an artist. My brother's in the music industry, and then I'm an athlete. So it's kind of this crazy dynamic, and we're kind of in all different aspects of life. It's pretty cool.
And you know what? Let's do this because this one warmed my heart, man. We were talking a little bit earlier about your mom
Yeah,
and then your stepmom. You want to go through that? I just thought
absolutely.
that was the most heartwarming thing ever.
I'm very fortunate to have two incredibly strong women in my life. My parents have been divorced since I was pretty much born. That's kind of all I knew, but I was lucky to have such a loving and supporting family that even though they're divorced, I was still had all the support I needed in the world and didn't grow up in a tumultuous household, thankfully. But yeah, my parents, my mom and my dad, they ran Tokyo Joe's together for the majority of my life growing up, even though they were divorced, and that was inspiring to see that and see that cooperation and how they were able to work together, especially how they were able to work together for the benefit of their kids. Me and my brother.
Yeah.
They would do anything in the world, and that was inspiring to see. And then my stepmother, Marcy, she's been in my life pretty much since I was born as well. So I've had these two incredible mother figures that I've had, and I'm so thankful for them because a lot of people, they don't have that aspect in life, and I'm really thankful that I was able to grow up with two really strong women to kind of show me, because I obviously have this strong father figure, but to have two strong mother figures is just as powerful,
Yeah.
And so that's definitely an interesting dynamic that I was able to grow up with.
It's the best, man. You have no idea how that warms my heart. And then to see you so successful and your siblings so successful. It's just I always want to do this on True Talks. I love to bring out just that humility because sometimes again people will see you now and they'll assume it was always just great. And I love that hard work, that dedication. You're going to be successful.
And my family is great. Of course, my family had the rough patches. No family doesn't have the rough patches.
That's right.
So don't think the family was perfect from day one because it definitely wasn't. But my family was very good at working through whatever they need to work through for the benefit of the family and to make everybody happy. And that is massive.
It's the best. It's the best story ever, right? I mean, how you got here.
Every single person in my family would do absolutely anything for any other person in my family.
Yeah, and I can feel that.
I'm so lucky. I think that's probably the biggest thing in my life is my family.
Can I tell you? Can I do a little old man to young man story here? So my daughter's on a world level team, and they just won the Worlds here this last year. Right?
Awesome.
And I'm sitting there in the crowd, and at one time you were this just little bitty guy, right? Changing your diapers, watching you kind of grow up, and when
Seems like yesterday.
yeah. Well, for you it wasn't too many yesterdays ago. For me, it was a lot of yesterdays, but. One of the things that I recall is when she's doing her routine, like I have a hard time watching it because she's a flyer, and I'm just thinking if she comes down, it's not about losing the competition, but it's about how I know she's going to feel if she thinks it's her, right? Mm-hmm. And as a father, you're just like, you want your kid to do so well, and it's almost more painful to watch your child than it is to do anything that you've ever done in your personal life, including running a business.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's like it's the most beautiful, horrible thing known to man. But I picture, again, your success, and I just know, I have a feeling, man, that one day you're going to be on the top of that podium, and I just know how your parents must have to feel with that. And it's just, what I love about it is when I hear it coming from you, how your dedication to get there is also because of what they've done. I think it's the most inspirational story that I've ever seen.
I mean, of course, you have these personal goals in your life. Like, oh, I want to do this, or I want to do this for me, and that's 100% there. But there's also this part where you're like, God, I just want to make my freaking family proud, it's crazy. I remember almost every time that I'm at a World Cup and I the cameras in my face, I always think about this, and I can almost get choked up. So I need to work on it. But I can always think about my mom's on the other side of that. She's watching her iPad at 4 a.m. in the morning in Colorado right now. I can always think about that. And for example, when I got that first World Cup podium of mine 2 years ago in Canada, I remember crossing the finish line. You have this elation as you cross the finish line. My teammates are coming out to tackle me and lift me in the air and stuff. And at the same time, I'm thinking my parents are losing their crap right now at home. Oh my gosh. And then to finally get on a phone call with them, and they're all it just makes your heart so happy. It's just as big as anything else, is that community within your family.
I love how this progression goes down. And again, you've done so much in the snowboarding, but I really hope that we highlight you as a man, and you're just a humble guy. You're working your ass off to be the best, and that's what I want people to see when we run this Senna Leith story.
Life's better when you're a good person. That's kind of my biggest thing. And a kind of interesting aspect of my life is when I go out and I compete, it's not if I don't win or get the exact podium or whatever I was trying to get that day, I'm not necessarily disappointed, because my biggest thing is just about going out and doing my best. Because if I went and did my best, I knew there's literally all I could do, and I'm totally satisfied with that. But that kind of translates over into life. If I'm living life and knowing that I'm being the best version of myself and being a good person and taking care of those around me, that's what helps me sleep the best at night. And that's what life's about, as I've found.
Yeah.
I try to. It's all about the little aspects of life. I think the little details in your life and how you're interacting with others and those around you and those that have less than you. I think that's the biggest thing, and that's kind of what makes life rewarding.
Man, you're so far ahead of your age, my friend. This is your life's going to turn out really, really good. You're still going to have your heart.
I sure hope so.
Yeah,
man.
You're going to have your heart at some point, but I think you got a real good jump start on this thing called life.
So that's because of the people around me, though. Life's about your circle.
Yeah,
100%. I'm lucky to have a really good circle. Of course, my family, but my friends and the mentors and coaches and teammates. Those are the people that really made me who I am. So
do you get to hang out a lot?
That's what I owe it to.
Do you get to hang out a lot with friends, or is this just so much work?
Well, it's crazy. So some of my closest friends are the employees for our coffee shops in Vail. Yeah. My family won't like this. I miss them as much as my family when I'm gone. I FaceTime them while I'm gone. They're really some of my closest people, and definitely some of my really close childhood friends. I definitely stay in contact with. I don't get to see them in person as much, but I text them all the time, FaceTime, and unfortunately, some of my friends kind of live all over the place. I have my really good friends that are out in Hawaii, but I try to FaceTime them. One of my best friends, she lives in New York City, so I try to FaceTime her all the time. Thank God for FaceTime. But really, some of my closest friends are my teammates, which I'm really thankful for.
So where do you go from here? So what we want to do is we want to get you a big following. Obviously, you're here in Colorado, which makes it kind of cool too for us. But how do people start following you?
Well, the easiest way to get an insight on my life is definitely through Instagram. Instagram at Senna Leith, SennaLeith. Same with Facebook. Facebook's super easy. I have my individual page and then also my athlete page on there. Super easy to find. You just type in my name. I'm the only Senna Leith in the whole world, so it's easy to find my name out there. I'm not going to get lost amongst the other Senna Leiths. So
there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah,
you were really easy.
Just type in my name, you'll find me. Trust me. Yeah, there's not enough of them.
So what's next? Tell us a schedule from here to your dream. What do you got to go through?
So right now, I'm in this big training cycle for the summer. So a lot of dry land training, stuff like that. We had a little on-snow training this summer out at Mount Hood on the glacier. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we would have gone to Australia this summer to get on snow, which is one of my favorite places to train in the summertime. But COVID kind of foiled that. So it's just kind of more dry land training up until mid-September. Mid-September, we'll go over to Europe for probably about a month or something like that to get on the glaciers in Switzerland. We'll have a camp there on a course with a whole bunch of other national teams, and that's definitely when things kind of start to kick it into high gear. Going into October, we'll probably come back to America for about a week or two or something like that, and then probably go back to Europe for another camp, depending on where we're going. And then I believe in November is going to be our first World Cup of the season, which is going to be in China at the Olympic venue, because they have not had an event there. So they need to have a test event in order to host the Olympics. So we're going to have a World Cup there, and that's actually going to be one of our first qualifying events for the Olympics. So that's going to be pretty crucial. From there, I think we're going to Russia. I forget what the place is called in Russia. It starts with a K.
Most of them do.
But we're going there after China, I believe, and then from there we'll go back to Europe, to Italy and Austria for some World Cups there, and all of those are going to be qualifying events. So it's go time. It's all physical and mental preparation from here on out, and checking all the boxes I can so that when I get in that gate, I know I've done everything I could to prepare myself.
And there's 4 spots available?
4 spots. And there's about 6 or 7 of us that are really fighting from. And the crazy thing about the U.S. snowboard team is any single one of those 7 can go out any day and be on the podium at a World Cup. So we definitely have the most competitive team in the world to make an Olympic team for, and I think that's what makes it even more worth it if you make it. So.
Well, I tell you what, I can't wait to see you on the podium. I just feel like that's going to happen. I think you're going to make this team. I think it's going to go well for you. But
I appreciate that.
At the end of the day, though, man.
I'm all about manifesting.
Well, we're going to manifest the hell out of it.
Manifesting is a huge part of life, and I think other people putting that energy out into the universe is a big part of it as well. So.
Well, all I know is you're a gold medal human being. And to me, at the end of the day, that's really what it all matters. I appreciate you coming on our show, man.
I appreciate you for having me.
I could not wait to get on there. You're exactly the man that I thought you would be.
Like, I'm glad I lived up to it.
I
really didn't want to disappoint, man. I was nervous driving up here. I'm like, come on, don't disappoint him.
You're a mini Lair, dude, and I like Lair a lot.
I do too.
Yeah, I bet you do. So again, thanks for coming on the show. We want everybody to follow you. Let's get a big bad thing.
I want everybody to follow you guys also. You guys are doing a great thing here, and I appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate that, man. We're going to have a big watch party, the whole 9 yards. It just sucks. It's in the middle of the night. You got to watch that stuff when it's...
Well, hopefully if I make the big one, it won't be in the middle of the night. It'll be around dinner time.
Oh, sweet.
So.
Well, we're going to have a big watch party. We're going to cheer you on. Man, this will be sweet. And no matter if you get a gold medal or not, we want to hear this experience. So we want to bring you on for part 2.
That's what life's about. Life's about the experience. It's about the process. It's all about the journey.
You are a great man. I appreciate you coming on the show.
I appreciate you for having me. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.